Hello. So, hi. Welcome to the live talk on Instagram. Sebastian Späth will join. He's at the airport at the moment, and I think he will join a little later to our conversation.
Shall we wait for him or shall we start?
I think we should. I think we should start. I can walk into the exhibition and show a little bit of the works.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And maybe Gretchen, you can tell a little bit about a concept, and I will try to invite Sebastian again, but maybe he has bad connection at the airport. All right. So let's switch the camera. So what we're seeing here is the current exhibition of Gretchen Andrew in my gallery, and Wolfgang Ullrich will talk about Gretchen's work and the concept of her exhibition. So I first of all give you a little overview, and yeah, so maybe Gretchen, you can tell about something about the concept of the e-commerce online store.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're seeing here is physically installed in Cologne at Falko Alexander's gallery. And for those of you who don't know me or my practice at all, in my practice, I hack systems of power with art, code, and glitter. And over the last couple of years have become known for hacking into Google algorithms, reverse engineering the artificial intelligence, and using Google search engine as this manifestation machine where all of my dreams look like they're coming true through art. And in this process, really show how absolutely vulnerable these very powerful systems that we're very dependent upon, just how, like, you know, I want people to sort of think like, oh my God, like, how do you do that? And also, wait, you do that. This is terrifying. We should be very worried. So this exhibition is the first time I took on Facebook, Facebook Meta, Instagram, that company, and looked at the particular systems of power and algorithms that are controlling and giving a certain flavor and tint to our lives there. Hello, just giving a little overview of the exhibition right now.
Hello, Sebastian.
And so,
hello, sorry for the delay.
You look great for being at an airport. Usually when I'm at an airport, I'm like holding 3 liquids and my shoes are off, and like, who else knows?
That's my style.
So in this exhibition,
so sorry.
no, it's okay. That's right. I was just giving an overview while we were waiting for you. So basically in this exhibition, whether through my Instagram or physically in the gallery, you can select which of these affirmation ads is your favorite. And through the process of selecting, of making a choice, and not just a consumer choice, but an aesthetic choice, a personal choice, putting one of these artworks into your basket through my faux art performance e-commerce store. I've programmed Facebook's tracking technology so that artwork then follows you around your social feeds instead of an advertisement. And because Facebook has a fixed percentage of advertising it believes that you can handle, my affirmation ad will actually not only present a positive statement, not only present your Instagram feed as a place where you have choice, it also actively does push out a different ad that would be designed to sell you something as opposed to remind you that you have more control over these systems than maybe we've like learned to sort of accept.
Okay, so I will get a little bit closer to some of the works because yeah, you don't see it from the distance that they are really three-dimensional and
yeah, and I'm wearing my painting coat right now, a little bit performatively, but also something that's been quite special about this is I've been able to bring back in. I have a figurative painting background. I work with Billy Childish, who's a British figurative painter for 5 years, and while that's always been a part of my practice and was a part of my vision boards, because these affirmation ads are natively installed in Instagram, I wanted to bring in more of that background of mine, more of that handmade approach. I wanted it to, if the vision boards look maybe a little bit more native to something like social media, where they look wrong in Google. And so I wanted to do something different, and I really enjoyed painting a little bit more, and I thought, well, for the Instagram Live, I will remind the world that I also painted these. But yes, they're quite 3D as well. They still have a lot of the same physical elements as my vision boards. You know, Falko has got some vision boards in his gallery that came from the Francisco Carlinium exhibition in Austria, and we had them next to each other for a while. So they do look of a piece together, but this also, I found it really important in my career to check on these algorithms, because I wanted to show people that it wasn't just like, oh, it's just Google, or there's just like this one trick I have. It's a whole way of system thinking, and it's a whole way of thinking about the differences between how we experience truth and beauty and art as people, and the absolute compressing of nuance and complexity that we often end up with as a result of technology.
Okay, so Sebastian is here now. Maybe you would like to join the conversation and tell a little bit what your profession is, where you started as an artist.
Okay, very shortly, I started as an artist. When I started fine arts in Karlsruhe, it's a small, really small city in Germany, and then I became a journalist, and right now I'm working for Der Spiegel. So basically that's one of Germany's or one of Europe's biggest news magazines. Yeah, that's what I do. But Gretchen, I'm really interested in the beginning of your career, because maybe it's a bit similar to me. I had the plan to become a journalist, to use this for my art career, and when I read your biography, I thought you started as a techie, I would say, working for this big tech company, Google. But did you work for Google to use it for your art career, or did you suddenly became an artist?
Oh, well, suddenly doesn't really feel like it sums up the last decade well, but no, like I was like full in drinking the Kool-Aid. Like I studied information theory. I loved tech. I didn't have any art background growing up. My older sister knew how to draw and I did not, and I was always very jealous of that. But when I was at Google and Intuit, and I just, for some context, I worked in human resource information system design, so I don't have any inside information as to how this company works. Everything that I do is I learned after I had left Google. But what I really found is, like, I was so in on this vision of what I thought tech would be. It's why I studied it. It's why I fell in love with the promise of it. And I just got out into Silicon Valley, and like, I don't know, I was an angsty 22-year-old. I thought I was smarter than my boss. Maybe I was, like, and I just was reacting against this whole system of I guess the gap between what I thought the promise of the technology was, what the promise of these companies were, the whole let's make the world a better place and organize the world's information, And from the inside, I mean, maybe this was naive to think any differently going in, but when I got there, I was like, this is just to manipulate us. This is just to sell us things. This isn't doing anything exciting or visionary. And I think that was important for me. It wasn't just about the activism of it. It wasn't visionary. It didn't feel cutting edge anymore. It felt like minute tweaks on how we track people, and not really what I thought the whole like beginnings of what the internet was. Like, I have this, oh no, I thought I had the dream machine here. But yeah, that it wasn't a plan. It all seems like a plan in retrospect, like my use of press and my tech background and the years I spent with Billy Childish in the studio. These were all very different, like separate parts of me and my experience until the last couple of years where things really clicked and I was able to bring in a much more unified and sincere way. But no, it really wasn't a plan.
But I didn't really get how you became an artist so concrete. I mean, because most of people would say you work for Google. How crazy are you to give up this kind of career to become an artist? So you lived
Yes,
in,
everyone thought that.
you lived in Silicon Valley, and now, so you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean, I had health insurance, I had a great job, I had a very covetable job, but I was really unhappy. And I think for me at that moment, I knew that it wasn't the job, it was the type of job, or, you know, it was like sort of the form like that. So when I left tech 10 years ago, I set it up as a challenge to myself because I had no background, because I had no proof. When I told people I was leaving to become an artist, everyone's like, but you don't know how to do that. And I set it up as not just a challenge to myself, but a challenge to the internet, a challenge to the technology that I believed in and thought could transform us. So I said, okay, the internet will make me into an artist. So I started with YouTube videos, how to draw hands, how to paint clouds, MoMA online, Stanford practice-based research online, wanting to use this tool to transform me into something that I wasn't yet. And that's still a huge, that ethos, that mode is still a huge part of my practice. I mean, really, I didn't learn to paint until I met Billy Childish, and he looked at what I was doing and said, this is terrible. And I said, I know. So it like, you know, like I get this label as being a self-taught artist, even though I've got this advanced degree with honors in information theory, and I worked under a master painter. Because I didn't go to the art school system, I'm considered to be self-taught, but I'm taught by the internet, and I'm taught by that belief that the internet can turn us into something that we're not. And so obviously I manifest that now in search engines, and the way I use that tech is very true to our original challenge, I guess.
Yeah, and I want to bring Wolfgang Ullrich in the conversation. You've seen the show at my gallery, and I think it touches a lot of the topics that you're writing in your books about for example, about the infrastructure of pictures and the metadata of pictures and consuming theories. I think they are very important in your works. What is for you the most interesting or touching point in Gretchen's work?
Hello everybody. Yes, I think Gretchen, your work is very contemporary for me, because it reflects that art today can be most convincing when it takes place both in the traditional analog public space as in a gallery room and in the public space of social media on the other side. And I think it's important that the work must be specifically conceived for these two spaces. And perhaps it may even be possible for the two parts to function quite independently, I think. And I find your series now, I already have everything I need to be beautiful. a very good example of such a, I would name it double-tracked kind of art. First, let us speak about the social media part, perhaps. This series is a form of protest, of subversion, I'd say. One's attention, you just told us, is drawn to how the algorithms work, the Facebook pixel works. And if you take part in this, you can achieve being increasingly confronted with the message that one doesn't need anything right now, with your message. And at the same time, if you take part in this, you are less likely to be harassed by advertising messages with contrary statements, with the usual statement that you need something more and should buy this or that. And on this level, on the social media level, I'd say your work is quite political. It's even activistic, because you can start to inform others about it, and who then in turn click on your ads. And at best, this work goes viral then, and is even more activistic. But on the other side, and Falko, you showed us the exhibition in your gallery. In the analog public space, the same series is first and foremost painting. And well, I was last week in the exhibition in Cologne. So I saw the pictures in the original, and therefore I know it's a very good painting with differentiated factures, sometimes pasty, sometimes very dry, I think, in the application of paint. You have chosen a beige canvas that yes, swallows some of the luminosity of the colors. And I think this is another kind of ultimately political statement that you give us with this kind of painting. Well, the compositions of your pictures come from product advertising, as far as I know, but you break precisely with the shiny, seductive consumer aesthetic by your way of painting. And you show the products in a much more sober way than we usually see them in advertising. And you show them to us not as something that we should desire, that we should want to have, but with a certain distance, and as if we would no longer need them. And insofar, I would say, with painterly means, the message or the title of your series is again very present. And insofar, we can say that your series works in each case in a different way, but very well adapted to the circumstances of the social media room on the one side and the analog room on the other side. And that's for me quite good. This double-tracked kind of producing a series, and that you conceived, how have I to build my message as a painter, and how have I to build my message as a social media activist.
It's really wonderful to hear you pull all of that out, because one of my early frustrations when I was discovering what the art world was this idea that you needed to be either or, especially in relation to conceptual art. I mean, now like there's much more of a digital thing going on, but I've always thought about my practice as conceptual art expressed through the formalism of what it means to be a conceptual artist who works in paint, who works in code, who works in these various things. And not wanting to have to choose, because part of what I'm doing in hacking the algorithm and hacking into the art world is reverse engineering the code as much as I am reverse engineering the systems of power in the art world, which absolutely loves unique physical painted objects that right on the wall in a gallery. And not to make any of that seem sinister, it's part of the formula for a certain type of success that is part of the line of execution, line of programming that I've considered in the scope of what my practice is.
Mm. Mm. Well, if I may add something, I would like to say that it's quite interesting for me how your new images differ from the previous series you made on a shot in Linz, I think, for example, with your vision boards, because in them it was about imagining that one already has something longed for that one is still missing at the moment, may it be money or fame or something else. And thus, the images of this first series are much more colorful, they are louder, they are more exciting. And well, they are meant to create an atmosphere of abundance, I think. And in this way, the coming success is to be anticipated. And insofar, these images follow, I would say, a logic of empowerment, of self-empowerment, which always consists of suggesting to oneself that the longed for goal is attainable, lies directly in front of one, can be reached by one's own efforts. And there you give encouragement with these pictures, you provide motivation. They are motivational pictures. Whereas the pictures of the new series now have more the character of calming or relaxation. It's an interesting kind of complementarity, I think, the two series, what you intend to do with the viewer or with the people who see it or who deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big differences too in this, I'm in a different stage of my career too. Like when I started making the vision board about wanting to be part of the art world, I really can't overemphasize how completely uncool it was when I wasn't at all part of it. In the last couple of years, as I started to receive a lot of press and exhibitions and work with great people, it maybe feels less vulnerable than it really did feel at the beginning when I had been trying and making artwork for 8 years, meeting people, going to art fairs where nobody knew me, going to exhibitions, sending emails to curators, all the annoying stuff, right? And then when I decided that I was going to start making work about wanting this even more explicitly, even more vulnerably than I already did, like when that process started, like I was not on any radar. It's not to at all be like, oh, well, here I am, I've made it, let me put up my feet and like just relax. But there is an acknowledgement that the power dynamic has shifted. And for me to have had no power, no influence, no notice, no recognition when I started the search engine process, like I'm still doing these hacks. I'm still showing, like, when I hack the 2020 presidential election results, or when I, take on, for me, the systems of power have always been broader than just the art world. It's all of big tech, it's all of politics, it's all information. But I wanted to also acknowledge that I am in a different state of my career, that I am less angsty, that there is, I have the trust of my audience a little bit more too, where I can say, okay, well, this is conceptual and it's physical, and also it's traditional oil painting, and that's a process and that's a step that people, enough people have been on with me that I guess it's me learning to trust that the conversation can evolve into that sort of medium and into that sort of space. And also to move from, the work is all about desire, what I desire to have, what I don't need to desire, the relationship between one and having,
yes.
And all of that. It's such a big deep historic connection into beauty, into art, into these things that are, like for me, my desire in my career is to be building more hooks, not just into figurative oil painting, but into institutional critique, into conceptual art, to be taking this digital contemporary practice and bringing people not just forward, but backwards as well from all of, whether it's, you know, what I studied or, you know, like the sort of things I'm, you know, have read and studied outside of the art school system, putting it in context of that road, which is art history, I think only strengthens the conversation around it. And, you know, I'm not reinventing any wheels here.
Well, I think it's a very interesting explanation for the difference of your two series. Well, but there's one thing common in both series, the motive of flowers. This didn't change. And in the first series, it's very clear for me why you implement such a lot of flowers and optimism and motivation and empowerment. But the new series, do they really need the flowers? What's the motivation for you here to integrate them into the paintings?
Yeah, I like to use the, I think that's a great question. I mean, you know, like the not needing to restrain myself, like I'm not coming from just painting, right? So to add the flowers in, it's more of a question of whether I took all of them away, like as my like sort of reference point in. And I like with the three-dimensional objects, in this case, I used a lot less of them. I like the way that it reminds us that we're extending beyond the canvas, not as much beyond the frame as I did in my vision boards, but we're extending off of a flat surface into these worlds, whether that's into the way we're thinking or into the algorithm. That symbol of extension and world creation for me is one of the reasons I started using objects in the vision boards originally. And the flowers, I do love that you can take these like cheesy dollar store flowers and put them into these contexts, and they build a bridge. I think they build a bridge not just from my past work, but also from you know, fake flowers, especially where I buy them. They're not often sold to people who are regularly buying fresh flowers or who have a lot of art. They're flowers were the first non-functional thing a lot of people had in their homes. And I think that relationship between desire and evolution and the way that comes out in, you know, fake dollar store flowers now, it's a way that people take control over their space even when they don't have a lot of money.
Okay, thank you.
Gretchen, there's one more point that I'm really interested in. Maybe it sounds stupid, but nowadays every artist has to use social media, has to use social media to become a famous artist. So in your eyes, what's the difference between you and the majority of all the others that use social media for their career? Because in Germany there are many people who had a social media career, and then in the second step they decide to do art, to sell it. So it's really to use social media, to manipulate social media is maybe the main question for every artist today. So yeah, in your eyes, what's the difference between you and all the others? Are you only smarter than all the others, or?
No, I love this question because like I'm very proud of like my 4,000 followers, but like look at my Instagram account. I am not a big deal on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like I don't have, like if you like, even like for artists who exhibit the way I do at the galleries I do, at the museums I do not have a big Instagram following. And
but you could if you
I mean, don't you think I'm like trying? Like, if I made my art the accumulation of followers, yes, I'm sure I could maybe figure that out. But what I'm doing in my practice is I'm not using social currency. I'm not using followers, fake or real. I'm using the gap between how algorithms and technology think and how we as people experience the world. And that's something that I began doing, you know, when I had 3,000 followers. Like it's my work is successful without a social media following. It takes place and this exhibition takes place in your feed more than mine. And I do see the decision to continually ground my work in traditions, whether that be institutional critique or figurative oil painting, as being an important difference. But also, I don't just take the system, I actually transform the system. I don't just like use Google. My work actively changes and reprograms Google's AI. These algorithms that are targeting and following us around social media are being altered and changed. The landscape is being changed. I'm not just critiquing the system. My work actually gets inside the algorithm and changes it because inputs are a huge decision in how like the future of these algorithms evolve and get weighted. But I do love a lot of these artists that I think you're talking about in the way that they've dedicated themselves to social media as a medium. I don't see social media as my medium. I see the algorithm as my medium more than the expression.
Well, I think many artists try to understand how social media function to have as much success as possible. You want to deconstruct them and not only a great difference.
You broke up a second for me.
Yeah, I think the connection was bad. Maybe Wolfgang, you can repeat your last sentences.
It's still stuck for me.
To understand, excuse me. Well, try to understand social media, to use them for their own success, whereas you understand them because you want to deconstruct them, and that's a very, very
yeah. It's a kind of a question for me about like what the end game or like
it
what
was
the
not
goal.
a question. It was.
Yeah, I think Sebastian is. I re-invited him, but the connection is not as good.
Like those people who are watching, can you hear at least me and Falko? Like we keep going while we wait for a thing to connect in here.
Can you hear me, Gretchen, or do I stuck for you too? I think Wolfgang freezes now.
Yeah, well, let's give him a second. I think that a lot of the way that
So I will.
Maybe Facebook's taking us out because it knows that I've been targeting it.
Yeah,
you were being censored.
we will be banned after this talk.
Yes. And by Instagram, yes.
I have to re-invite Sebastian.
Okay, great. Okay, so it does look like at least like the Sebastian, Wolfgang are the ones who are freezing for everyone else. And while we're waiting for the connection to restore, I'm going to really quickly tell a story of what happened. On the day of the opening, I woke up and I received an email from Facebook Meta that had shut down everything that I've been doing. And basically, like, everything I do is completely legal and completely within terms of service. But Facebook reserves discretion to shut down whatever it wants and for any reason at any time, which is very different than Google, which doesn't interfere unless it's at scale. And it's like in Facebook, there's actually a lot of human decision making that goes on about what can be shown and when. And so the oh, good. I think we might be back, but let me just wrap this story up quickly. But basically, Facebook had banned me for what it's called social issue advertising. So basically, if you're going to issue around if you're going to make and use their advertising network related to social issues that are controversial, Facebook can require you to have additional certification. Basically, the morning of the opening, they had shut down everything I had done because I was social issue advertising around the social issue of social media being bad for us. And of course, like, I found a way around it, but it was a it was like a tough thing to wake up to on the day of the opening, because it was they don't have to provide any additional information. They just can shut things down. And I was honestly shocked how difficult the ad network was to unwind at Facebook, and not because of it being so technical, but because of it being so arbitrary and the degree of human approval and interference that does take place on it. So, like, for my critique of Google often being that there was none of this discussion, there's none of this, to see it executed on Facebook the other way was quite interesting, because really the main issue here for me is that neither of these companies should have this much monopoly power, and it's like to depend upon anyone, whether it's an algorithm or a set of individuals, to make the right decisions. It's just too much of a scale. So that was a bit of a diversion, but looks like we got one back. Your connection looks good again.
Yes, I'm back again. Excuse me.
I was just doing like an like a commercial while we waited for you.
But Sebastian,
I think he's
come back?
I sent him invitations, but he's maybe he has bad network on the airport.
Oh, okay.
I tried again, but so.
Falko, do you have another question to ask?
Yeah, so I because I was inviting Sebastian all the time, I missed the last 2 minutes. But I think you talk about the video that you made about the advertising ban from Facebook. But I think it's interesting because I could use your video where you talk about the story and where you criticize Facebook and Instagram for banning your AdWords, and I could use this video to promote my online shop, where I put your works inside. I think it was only one of the paintings I put after that video in my Instagram shop, and there you have the opportunity to use video as a promotion. So I think it was kind of funny to use that video where you criticize Facebook for banning them to advertise for the picture, and it's still online. So I think I have no idea if they have artificial intelligence to analyze the text and the pictures and the video, or if there is some manpower behind it and people checking what it is about, especially in videos, what is the message. And I think the whole game of Facebook, Instagram banning things and canceling things is about how the algorithm, how the network understands our word, and how it is able to cancel some things, to ban some things. And I think, Wolfgang, we talk about this in the exhibition. I think someone that you know from, who is much deeper in this thing, told you that there is much more manpower behind this than we expect to
Yes.
to analyze all this stuff.
Mm. I spoke about a German intellectual and author, Berit Glanz, who has written a novel former this year with the title Automaton, and this book deals with the people who have the job to observe all the things that are uploaded in the social media, and where and the company they are working for tells that they work with artificial intelligence, but in reality they work with manpower, with people who work in a home office and get a lot of stuff to control and to view at. And she has, as far as I know, a lot of own experience of this kind of work, and knows that there is less artificial intelligence used than we may think, or we should think that it is.
And
I'm not sure that we can say this in general, but I can imagine that that she's right with her analysis.
I think it's interesting because, Gretchen, you work with a system that tries to understand how the algorithm works, for example, in search engine optimization or the e-commerce structure. So it's the algorithms talk in a different language than yes. We are talking, and you try to translate and learn this English and learn how to manipulate it. And on the other side, the algorithms try to understand what is written in your texts, because especially when you paint something, when you paint a text, that is something that a machine couldn't analyze so good, and so it's that kind of translation thing. You try to understand the algorithm to manipulate them, and the algorithm tries to understand you to not manipulate them.
Yeah.
Is that right, or am I wrong?
Yeah, I like to think about it like in America, we have this concept, I think it's not just American, but the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. Mm-hmm. And an algorithm always execute on the letter of the law. But as we know, for anything that's, really close to human nuance and complexity, you can't program it. There's always edge cases and there's always oddities. And this is something that I think it's so true and so important to what art can do for us in our lives, is that it's not simple. Like a lot of AI systems try and take out anything that's odd. It tries to make it all fit so that the computer can learn from it. Whereas I believe what happens when we go see art, when we go to an art museum, our conscious or subconscious is confronted with all of these complexities of, I don't see the world that way. I wouldn't have painted it that way. That's something I don't know about. This, I call it productive uncertainty or positive dissonance that happens to us when we see art, especially from other cultures, especially stuff that we've not seen before. It kind of like frazzles our internal wires. And I think that process should be going into AI more, because what we're doing is we're creating a more and more false view of the world where, like most AI is built on top of human language. And okay, I'm sure you can speak even more to this. Language itself does not really operate efficiently. It's full of post-structuralist dramas and, issues of understanding. We, even speaking the same language, can misunderstand each other. And then we've built AI entirely on top of that, as if that was a stable ground to be working from to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a further, quite general question to you and your work. Well, I spoke about the double-tracked kind of art that you make, and that it's possible, perhaps, that some people only see your paintings and are quite impressed by them, and other people only realize what you're doing in the social media and how you deconstruct the mechanisms of algorithms and so on. And how is the process of your work? Do you first make the concept of the social media? What do you want to deconstruct? And then you consider how to conceive the same topic in paintings or in for the analog space, or other way around, or how does this work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's not purely procedural, as far as like one necessarily like directly follows the other. I studied figurative oil painting because that's the sort of work that made me fall in love with wanting to be an artist.
Wow.
And when I began looking at the algorithms and the way that it was misunderstanding, basically what I've found is that the raison d'etre of painting and of art was so opposite that of algorithms, that as I was exploring these two things separately for a long time, everything that painting seemed great at to me: nuance, valuing perspective. Like, in algorithms, you're trying to get rid of bias. Like, painting is all about, like, at least it is now, like the artist's view of thing, not the truth, a truth. And this truth came from a particular perspective, and that particular perspective is like a lot of the point. The whole association of the who made it and when and everything mattering so much in our contemporary world of painting, for the last hundreds of years or whatever, since the Renaissance. But I think ultimately, because I come from these two worlds, I'm always looking at the ways that they do and do not line up. And if I come maybe from a photography background, I'd be looking at different aspects of the algorithm. But I very much felt early on, and especially in Google, that like I wanted this to look wrong inside the algorithm. I wanted to confuse the algorithm. I wanted to, photography's relationship to truth is very different than painting's relationship to truth. And our literacy that this isn't the truth, it's a truth, is very high with painting, and it should be higher with photography, but it's relatively low. And that I wanted that to infuse the way I was addressing Google, and then it carried very well into a different justification inside Instagram, which we've already discussed. And in the way that you describe the work is very much discussed, that it's raw canvas, it's very handmade, it's not it's bright and it's colorful, but it's not shiny. I'm not glazing it. I'm making marks that recall their making. I'm reminding viewers with every single one of those strokes that this is something handmade and unique and not mass-produced.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think Sebastian is gone. He has to catch a plane to Milan for the design fair, and he writes something about it on Der Spiegel. So yeah. So should we
come to an end, or?
Yeah. Do you think you have more questions?
My urgent questions are perfectly answered now. Thank you.
The questions that we can't answer are intentionally, meant to be answered by the the art itself. And I think just like on one final thing to say on that, like I think I do so believe in the power of what painting is outside of language. That there's a lot of the way that my practice has evolved, where in certain ways it can protect that. So to be, if I were just a contemporary painter today, I'd have to like talk about the paintings and like really talk about them instead of talk about all the, like I can talk about the paintings, but I think the requirement of the contemporary art world to turn painting into language damages painting. And with my practice, there's so much else we can talk about that it sort of protects the non-language, non-verbal part of what painting does that language can't.
Yes, and as I told, I was very impressed by the paintings last week, and then so far I can confirm what you said just now.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I was a bit nervous dusting off those skills. I mean, like the vision boards have drawing in them, but like I got the cologne and I was like, all right, I think I remember how to do this. But yeah, it came back so quickly.
No, Falko, and I, we spoke a long time about your paintings and some details of and how they are made and how and on the structures and so on. It was one of the most extensive conversations about painting I had in the last time.
Really?
You're allowed to talk about
really, really honored. Okay, yeah. I think we couldn't find a better word for the finishing of the talk. So
people should visit the exhibition and look at these wonderful paintings. Yes.
And if you go to my Instagram page and my profile on Instagram, which is @Gretchen Andrew, and you click View Shop, that's where you can select your affirmation ad, which will follow you around the internet, at least through the end of this exhibition. We'll probably continue it a little bit later. But when the exhibition is over, I'll probably take it down for a few weeks just to evaluate the data and look at how to expand it. But for the next couple of weeks, please install the affirmations. I will be at Art Basel in Switzerland. If anyone's out there, like get in touch. And I really am so thankful for Sebastian, who disappeared, Wolfgang, for your attention and for visiting the show in person. And Falko, this show has been so smooth and so wonderful to do with you. And it's, I'm really happy to see it so beautifully installed. It's perfect.
Same to you. Yeah, and thank you so much, Wolfgang, Ullrich. Really appreciate that you took the time to come to the exhibition and talk with us about Gretchen's work. And so thanks a lot. And so, maybe we will have another Instagram talk in the future for the next exhibitions. So stay tuned.
Yeah, who knows what's next?
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks, you.
And bye-bye.